Now we will discuss about coronary artery disease. Coronary artery disease is the most common cause of angina and acute coronary syndrome and the most common cause of death worldwide. The World Health Organization has estimated that 3.8 million men and 3.4 million women die from cardiovascular disease each year, and since 1990 more people have died from CVD than any other cause. It also has a devastating effect on quality of life. Disability adjusted life years, a measure of healthy years of life lost, can be used to indicate the burden of disease rather than the resulting deaths. It has been estimated that coronary artery disease is responsible for 10% of disability adjusted life years in low-income countries and 18% in high-income areas. In the UK, 1 in 3 men and 1 in 4 women die from coronary artery disease. An estimated 188,000 people have a myocardial infarct each year, and approximately 2.3 million people are living with coronary artery disease. The death rates from coronary artery disease in the UK are among the highest in Western Europe, more than 70,000 people, but are falling, particularly in younger age groups. Over the last 50 years, coronary artery disease mortality has more than halved. In Eastern Europe and much of Asia, however, the rates of coronary artery disease are rapidly rising. Occult coronary artery disease is common in those who present with other forms of atherosclerotic vascular disease, such as intermittent claudication or stroke, and is an important cause of morbidity and mortality in these patients. Pathogenesis: in the vast majority of patients, coronary artery disease is caused by atherosclerosis, but rarely it can occur as the result of aortitis, vasculitis, and autoimmune connective tissue diseases. Atherosclerosis is a progressive inflammatory disorder of the arterial wall that is characterized by focal lipid-rich deposits of atheroma that remain clinically silent until they become large enough to impair tissue perfusion, or until ulceration and disruption of the lesion result in thrombotic occlusion or distal embolization of the vessel. Atherosclerosis begins early in life with deposits of lipids in the vessel wall, which tend to occur at sites of altered arterial shear stress, such as bifurcations, and are associated with abnormalities of endothelial function at that site. Abnormalities of arterial function have been detected among high-risk children and adolescents, such as cigarette smokers and those with familial hyperlipidemia or hypertension. Early lesions have been found in the arteries of victims of accidental death in the second and third decades of life, but clinical manifestations often do not appear until the sixth, seventh, or eighth decade. During evolution of an atherosclerotic plaque, monocytes and other inflammatory cells bind to receptors expressed by endothelial cells. Subsequently, they migrate into the intima and take up oxidized low-density lipoprotein particles by phagocytosis to become lipid-laden macrophages or foam cells. Extracellular lipid pools appear in the intimal space when foam cells die and release their contents. In response to cytokines and growth factors produced by activated macrophages, smooth muscle cells migrate from the media of the arterial wall into the intima and change from a contractile to a fibroblastic phenotype, which can stabilize the atherosclerotic lesion. If this is successful, the lipid core will be covered by smooth muscle cells and matrix, producing a stable atherosclerotic plaque that will remain asymptomatic until it becomes large enough to obstruct arterial flow. In an established atherosclerotic plaque, macrophages mediate inflammation and smooth muscle cells promote repair. If inflammation predominates, the plaque becomes active or unstable and may be complicated by ulceration and thrombosis. Cytokines such as interleukin-1, tumor necrosis factor alpha, interferon gamma, platelet-derived growth factors, and matrix metalloproteinases are released by activated macrophages. They cause the intimal smooth muscle cells overlying the plaque to become senescent and the collagen crosslinks within the plaque to degrade. This results in thinning of the protective fibrous cap, making the lesion vulnerable to mechanical stress that ultimately causes erosion, fissuring, or rupture of the plaque surface. Any breach in the integrity of the plaque will expose its contents to blood and will trigger platelet aggregation and thrombosis that extend into the atheromatous plaque and the arterial lumen. This may cause partial or complete obstruction at the site of the lesion or distal embolization, resulting in infarction or ischemia of the affected organ. This common mechanism underlies acute coronary syndromes as well as other manifestations of atherosclerotic disease such as lower limb ischemia and stroke. The number and complexity of arterial plaques increase with age and risk factors, but the rate of progression of individual plaques is variable. There is a complex and dynamic interaction between mechanical wall stress and atherosclerotic lesions. Vulnerable plaques are characterized by a lipid-rich core, a thin fibrocellular cap, speckled calcification, and an increase in inflammatory cells that release specific enzymes to degrade matrix proteins. In contrast, stable plaques are typified by a small lipid pool, a thick fibrous cap, heavy calcification, and plentiful collagenous crosslinks. Fissuring or rupture tends to occur at sites of maximal mechanical stress, particularly the margins of an eccentric plaque, and may be triggered by a surge in BP, such as during exercise or emotional stress. Surprisingly, most plaque events are subclinical and heal spontaneously, although this may allow thrombus to be incorporated into the lesion, producing plaque growth and further obstruction to flow. Atherosclerosis may induce complex changes in the media that lead to arterial remodeling. Some arterial segments may slowly constrict, negative remodeling, while others may gradually enlarge, positive remodeling. These changes are important because they may amplify or minimize the degree to which atheroma encroaches into the arterial lumen. Many risk factors have been identified for atherosclerosis, but the causes are incompletely understood since unknown factors account for up to 40% of the variation in risk from one person to the next. Coronary artery disease, clinical manifestations and pathology. Stable angina, ischemia due to fixed atheromatous stenosis of one or more coronary arteries. Unstable angina, ischemia caused by dynamic obstruction of a coronary artery due to a plaque rupture or erosion with superimposed thrombosis. Myocardial infarction, myocardial necrosis caused by acute occlusion of a coronary artery due to plaque rupture or erosion with superimposed thrombosis. Heart failure, myocardial dysfunction due to infarction or ischemia. Arrhythmia, altered conduction due to ischemia or infarction. Sudden death, ventricular arrhythmia, asystole or massive myocardial infarction. This diagram shows the stages of atherosclerosis. There are 6 stages of atherosclerosis. Type 1, initial lesion, isolated macrophage form cells. Sequence in progression, main growth mechanisms, growth mainly by lipid accumulation in type 1 to type 4. Earliest onset from first decade, type 1 and type 2. Type 3 and 4 from third decade. Clinically silent from type 1, type 2 and type 3. There 3 stages are clinically silent. Type 1 shows lesion isolated macrophage form cells. Type 2, fatty streak lesion, mainly intracellular lipid accumulation. Type 3, intermediate lesion. Type 2 changes and small extracellular lipid pools. Type 4, atheroma lesion. Type 2 changes and core of extracellular lipid. Type 5, fibroatheroma lesion, lipid core and fibrotic layer, or multiple lipid cores and fibrotic layers, or mainly calcific or mainly fibrotic. It is accelerated smooth muscle and collagen increase from fourth decade, clinically silent or overt. Type 6 or complicated lesion. Surface defect. Hematoma, hemorrhage, thrombus. Thrombosis hematoma occurs from fourth decade, clinically silent or overt. Now, age and sex. Age is the most powerful independent risk factor for atherosclerosis, and gender also plays a role. Premenopausal women have lower rates of disease than men, although the gender difference disappears after the menopause. Hormone replacement therapy (HRT) is not effective in the prevention of coronary artery disease, and HRT in postmenopausal women is associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular events. Genetics. Atherosclerotic coronary artery disease often runs in families, and a positive family history is common in patients with early onset disease, that is age less than 50 in man and for less than 55 in women. Twin studies have shown that a monozygotic twin of an affected individual has an eightfold increased risk, and a dizygotic twin a fourfold increased risk of dying from coronary artery disease compared to the general population due to a combination of shared genetic, environmental, and lifestyle factors. The most common risk factors such as hypertension, hyperlipidemia, and diabetes mellitus are inherited in a polygenic manner. Smoking. There is a strong relationship between cigarette smoking and coronary artery disease, especially in younger, less than 70 years individuals, and this is probably the most important modifiable risk factors. Hypertension. The incidence of atherosclerosis increases as blood pressure rises, and this is related to systolic and diastolic BP, as well as pulse pressure. Antihypertensive therapy reduces cardiovascular mortality, stroke, and heart failure. Hypercholesterolemia. The risk of atherosclerosis rises with serum cholesterol concentrations, and lowering serum total and LDL cholesterol concentrations reduces the risk of cardiovascular events. Diabetes mellitus. This is a potent risk factor for all forms of atherosclerosis, especially type 2 diabetes mellitus. It is often associated with diffuse disease that is difficult to treat. Insulin resistance, normal glucose homeostasis with high levels of insulin is associated with obesity and physical inactivity, and is also a risk factor for coronary artery disease. Glucose intolerance makes a major contribution to the high incidence of ischemic heart disease in people from the Indian subcontinent and some other ethnic groups. Homeostatic factors, platelet activation, and high plasma fibrinogen concentrations are associated with an increased risk of coronary thrombosis, whereas antiphospholipid antibodies are associated with recurrent arterial thrombosis. Physical activity, regular exercise, brisk walking, cycling, or swimming for 20 minutes 2 or 3 times a week has a protective effect, whereas inactivity roughly doubles the risk of coronary artery disease and is a major risk factor for stroke. Obesity. Obesity, particularly if central or truncal, is an independent risk factor, although it is often associated with other adverse factors such as hypertension, diabetes mellitus, and physical inactivity. Alcohol. Excess alcohol consumption is associated with hypertension and cerebrovascular disease. Diet. Diets deficient in fresh fruit, vegetables, and polyunsaturated fatty acids are associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. The introduction of a Mediterranean style diet reduces cardiovascular events. However, dietary supplements such as vitamin C and E, beta carotene, folate, and fish oils do not reduce cardiovascular events, and some cases have been associated with harm. Personality. While certain personality traits are associated with an increased risk of coronary disease, there is no evidence to support the popular belief that stress is a major cause of coronary artery disease. Social deprivation. Social deprivation is strongly related to cardiovascular disease. This may be partly due to associations with lifestyle risk factors such as smoking and alcohol excess, which are more common in socially deprived individuals. Social deprivation does appear to be an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. However, current guidelines recommend that treatment thresholds should be lowered for patients from socially deprived areas. The effects of risk factors can be multiplicative rather than additive. People with a combination of risk factors are at greatest risk, and so assessment should take account of all identifiable risk factors. It is important to distinguish between relative risk, the proportional increase in risk, and absolute risk, the actual chance of an event. For example, a man of 35 years with a plasma cholesterol of 7 millimole per liter, approximately 170 milligram per deciliter, who smokes 40 cigarettes a day, is much more likely to die from coronary disease within the next decade than a non-smoking man of the same age with a normal cholesterol. But the absolute likelihood of his dying during this time is still small, high relative risk, low absolute risk. Now the management. Two approaches can be employed. Primary prevention aims to introduce lifestyle changes or therapeutic interventions to prevent coronary artery disease and other forms of atherosclerosis in the whole population or in healthy individuals with an elective risk of disease. Secondary prevention involves initiating treatment in patients who already have had an event with the aim of reducing the risk of subsequent events. Primary prevention. The population-based strategy aims to modify the risk factors of the whole population through diet and lifestyle advice, on the basis that even a small reduction in smoking or average cholesterol or modification of exercise and diet will produce worthwhile benefits. Some risk factors such as obesity and smoking are also associated with a higher risk of other diseases and should be actively discouraged through public health measures. The effectiveness of this approach has been demonstrated by introduction of legislation to restrict smoking in public places, which has been associated with reductions in rates of MI. The targeted strategy aims to identify and treat high-risk individuals who usually have a combination of risk factors that can be qualified by composite scoring system. It is important to consider the absolute risk of atheromatous cardiovascular disease that an individual is facing before initiating treatment, since this will help to determine whether the potential benefits of intervention are likely to outweigh the expense, inconvenience, and possible side effects of treatment. For example, a 65-year-old man with an average blood pressure of 150/90 mm mercury, who smokes and has diabetes mellitus with a total high-density lipoprotein cholesterol ratio of 8, has a 10-year risk of MI or stroke of 56%. Conversely, a 55-year-old woman who has an identical blood pressure, is a non-smoker, does not have diabetes mellitus, and has a total HDL cholesterol ratio of 6, has a much lower, much better outlook. With a 10-year coronary MI or stroke risk of 5.7%. Lowering cholesterol will reduce the risk in both of these individuals by 30%, and lowering blood pressure will produce a further 20% reduction. In combination, both strategies would reduce the risk of an event from 56% to 25% in the male patient and from 5.7% to 2.5% in the female patient. Thresholds for treatment vary in different countries. In the UK and North America, current guidelines recommend initiation of cholesterol and blood pressure lowering therapies in individuals with a 10-year cardiovascular risk of 7.5 to 10%. Secondary prevention. This involves targeting interventions at individuals who already have evidence of cardiovascular disease. Patients who recover from a clinical event such as an MI are usually keen to help themselves and are particularly receptive to lifestyle advice such as dietary modification and smoking cessation. Additional interventions that should be introduced in patients with angina pectoris or an acute coronary syndrome are discussed in more detail below. The table shows population-based strategies to prevent coronary disease. The strategies are: do not smoke, take regular exercise, minimum of 20 minutes 3 times per week, maintain an ideal body weight, eat a mixed diet rich in fresh fruit and vegetables, aim to get no more than 10% of energy intake from saturated fat. Thank you.